Between 1968 and 1969, a serial killer stalked the streets of Northern California. He didn't hide. He didn't run. He wrote letters to the police taunting them. He sent ciphers to newspapers daring the public to crack them. He gave himself a name. He called himself the Zodiac. And to this day, nobody knows who he was. The Zodiac Killer was a serial killer active in Northern California between 1968 and 1969, though he claimed responsibility for up to 37 murders. His confirmed victims number at least 5. He targeted couples parked in remote locations and lone individuals on dark roads. He was calculated, patient, and completely invisible to law enforcement despite one of the largest manhunts in California history. December 20th, 1968. Lake Herman Road, Benicia, California. 2 teenagers, David Faraday, 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16, were parked in a remote spot on a dark road. It was their first date. They were found shot dead later that night by a passing motorist. David had been shot in the head at close range. Betty Lou had been shot 5 times in the back as she ran from the car. The killer had vanished without a trace. Police had nothing. July 4th, 1969. Blue Rock Springs Park, Vallejo, California. Just 6 months later, Darlene Farron, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19, were sitting in a parked car in a dark parking lot when a man approached the vehicle and opened fire. Darlene was killed. Michael survived, badly wounded, and became the first person to ever describe the Zodiac to police. Medium height, heavy build, short brown hair, a round face. That was all they had. On August 1st, 1969, just weeks after the Blue Rock Springs attack, 3 newspapers across the San Francisco Bay Area received identical letters: the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each letter contained a detailed description of both attacks, information only the killer could know. Each letter contained 1/3 of a complex 408-symbol cipher, and each letter ended with the same demand: print this cipher on the front page, or I will go on a killing rampage this weekend. The newspapers printed the ciphers. Within a week, a high school teacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty cracked it. What they found inside was chilling. The message read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." The Zodiac had spoken, and America was terrified. September 27th, 1969, Lake Berryessa, Napa County. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Ann Shepard were picnicking by the lake when a man approached wearing a bizarre homemade costume, a black executioner-style hood with a Zodiac crosshair symbol stitched onto the chest in white. He tied them both up. He stabbed Brian 6 times. He stabbed Cecilia 10 times. Brian survived. Cecilia died 2 days later in hospital. Before leaving, the Zodiac calmly walked to Brian's car and wrote the dates of all 3 attacks on the car door in black marker. He wanted credit. He wanted to be known. October 11th, 1969, San Francisco. Cab driver Paul Stein picked up a fare in the Tenderloin district and drove to the Presidio Heights neighborhood. When he stopped the car, the passenger shot him once in the head. The Zodiac took Paul's wallet and tore a piece from his shirt. He then calmly wiped down the cab for fingerprints and walked away. 3 witnesses saw him from a nearby window. Police were dispatched, but by a dispatcher error, were told to look for a black suspect. The Zodiac was white. Officers walked right past him. He disappeared into the night. After the Paul Stein murder, the Zodiac wrote again, this time enclosing a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt as proof. He taunted the police. He threatened to shoot children on school buses. He sent letters to defense attorneys and to the mayor of San Francisco. He sent a cipher to famous lawyer Melvin Belli, begging for help, claiming he couldn't control himself. He signed every letter the same way, with his crosshair symbol and a running tally of his victims. By the end, he claimed 37 kills. Police could only confirm 5. The investigation into the Zodiac became one of the largest in California history. Hundreds of detectives, thousands of tips, hundreds of suspects investigated and cleared. the San Francisco Police Department, the Vallejo Police Department, the Napa County Sheriff, the FBI, all working in parallel and still getting nowhere. The Zodiac seemed to know exactly how to avoid leaving evidence. No fingerprints, no DNA, at least none that could be matched, no witnesses who could identify him beyond a vague description. He was a ghost. Over the decades, investigators and amateur sleuths have pointed fingers at dozens of suspects. The most famous, Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted sex offender from Vallejo who matched the physical description, owned Zodiac brand watches, used the same unusual misspellings as the letters, and had no alibi for several of the murders. He was investigated twice. His home was searched, but DNA and fingerprint tests were inconclusive, and he died in 1992, never having been charged. Other suspects have included a man named Lawrence Kane, a suspect called Ross Sullivan, and most recently, a group of researchers in 2021 claimed to have identified the Zodiac as a man named Gary Francis Post. None have been officially confirmed. Of the 4 ciphers the Zodiac sent, 3 remained unsolved for decades. Then, in December 2020, 51 years after it was sent, a team of 3 amateur codebreakers from the United States, Australia, and Belgium cracked the famous Z340 cipher using specialized computer software. What it revealed was haunting. The Zodiac wrote, "I hope you are having lots of fun and trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner because I now have enough slaves to work for me." The FBI confirmed the solution was credible, but it brought investigators no closer to a name. Investigators point to several reasons the Zodiac was never caught. First, the attacks were spread across multiple jurisdictions with different police departments who didn't always share information effectively. Second, forensic science in the late 1960s was primitive compared to today. DNA profiling didn't exist. Digital databases didn't exist. Third, the Zodiac appeared to be an organized, methodical killer who planned every attack carefully and left as little evidence as possible. And fourth, he simply stopped. After 1969, the attacks ceased. The letters continued until 1974, and then went silent too. Whatever drove him to kill, it stopped. Or he died, or he moved. Nobody knows. Behind all the ciphers and letters and theories, there were real people. David Faraday was 17 and on his first date. Betty Lou Jensen was 16. Darlene Ferrin was 22 and a mother. Paul Stein was a cab driver working his night shift. Cecilia Ann Shepard was 22 and a music student. They were ordinary people living ordinary lives who had the profound misfortune of crossing paths with one of America's most elusive killers. They deserved better. They deserved justice. And justice has never come. The Zodiac Killer case remains officially open. The San Francisco Police Department has never closed the file. Advances in DNA technology have given investigators hope. Partial DNA profiles have been extracted from letters and stamps the Zodiac licked. If a family member ever submits DNA to a genealogy database, there is a real chance of a match. Until that day, the Zodiac Killer is the most famous unidentified serial killer in American history, a name nobody knows, a face nobody can confirm, a case with no ending, the Zodiac Killer. At least 5 confirmed dead, 37 claimed, 1 cipher cracked after 51 years, 0 arrests, 0 convictions. The case file still open. If you want more stories like this, cases that changed history, killers who were never caught, mysteries with no clean ending, subscribe, hit the bell. A new case drops every week, and some of them are even harder to explain than this one.